All right, hello, what's going on? Rich here. Today we're going to be walking through the OCR Stars workout 2. It's called Grip Gauntlet. It consists of a deadlift, 5 minutes of pull-ups, and a max dead hang. So before we get into it, hit me with a like, hit me with subscribe. Make sure you're checking out the reinforced training group for strength training and just general OCR and hybrid training down below. All right, let's get into it. All right, so leading into the deadlift, you can see how the weights are all set out specifically. That whiteboard behind has a very specific plan about what weights I want to hit and also like how to get there. So it started with 345, which is 3 plates and a 15, I believe. So I wasn't going to start that light. I was actually going to start a little bit heavier, but I was talking to the coach here at the gym, and he had a better idea about kind of loading up a little bit, going up by 20 pounds, and then just doing consistently, just kind of keeping a good flow of things. I was approaching it much more like a powerlifter would, but I'm not a powerlifter. I'm much more in this CrossFit type of space. So it made more sense to kind of speed things up and just trust that I can handle the volume over time, because the weight's not incredibly heavy in terms of what a powerlifter could do, but it's not bad in terms of like a CrossFitter. So you can see that I'm wearing these knee sleeves. So these knee sleeves are meant for, good, that was lift number 2, and that was 365. So I went up 20 pounds there. So the knee sleeves, they were more for the pull-ups, right? So that when I tested the pull-up workout, it was really and I have a bruise still. I did this on Tuesday. I'm recording this on Friday. One of the limiters in the pull-ups was that the weight was kind of sliding around and kind of was hurting the skin. So I wanted to make sure I had these reband sleeves on there. So that's what I wanted. It doesn't help the deadlift at all. So here I'm making a jump to 387. I threw some 1 pound weights on there as well. The idea behind that was the initial way that they were going to score this was they were going to have your placement based off of the weight that you pulled. So putting ones on is a good way to avoid a bottleneck. So most people would just kind of put this weight on, it'd be 385. So putting 387 on there was a way to kind of avoid that. But it doesn't necessarily matter at this point, the way that they're scoring it now. So this was where I was initially going to open up. This was closer to about 90% of where I thought I could hit. And now I'm taking longer rests. You can see I got 3 reps in about 2 minutes. We get 7 total minutes to establish this 1 rep. So I made sure I built up to it, which I think was a good idea. Now I'm making smaller jumps. So it was 20-pound jumps from 345 to 365 to 387. And now it's just going to be a 10-pound jump to 397. And after this, I'm definitely going to take a little bit more rest to make sure that I am fully ready to go. And like I said, initially I was just going to do 2 or 3 reps at this and take big rest in between. But I kind of like the way that I did it instead. The coach who kind of led me through this was really like, yeah, just continue to kind of move. And this is me walking out the door just to kind of keep my hand, try to flap my hands in like the cold air to kind of try to keep them dry, because we're not allowed to have chalk. We weren't allowed to have belts. We weren't allowed to have straps, no gloves or anything like that. Another thing, you can see the bar. It seems like it's been chalked up, but this is just what a bar looks like that's been in a gym for a long time. This gym isn't necessarily new, so the equipment's not necessarily new. They use chalk in the gym. The bar is not chalked. My hands aren't chalked. It's just kind of how these old worn bars kind of look after a while. So there was no advantage on that end. Chalk would have been great, especially I do sweat a lot through my hands. So I was really kind of looking forward to having some sort of chalk or having a belt when working up to this 1 rep. And here I was just kind of sitting aside and talking to Justin, the coach, about how things are kind of looking at this point. So this is the first real lift that I wasn't sure how it was going to go. You can see trying to get the sweat off my hands through a shirt. So lining up, just want to make sure I keep my butt down. That's one of the main cues. I go in mixed grip here and just trying to drive through the ground. You see the bar pulls away from my shins a little bit and then on the way back down. So the speed was still good. The form was a little bit wacky. The bar did get away from me a little bit there, and it felt a little bit heavy, but I was confident that I could get another one in. So this is 4 minutes in. So I figure I had at least one more shot to get to the goal weight, which was 407. And kind of talking through how this is going to work. So I pulled off some plates and then affixed it with The fourth plate, the little one on there, just again to avoid that bottleneck. I thought I was so smart for that, but it doesn't necessarily matter because it only added 2 pounds or 2 units to my score because they kind of made all the raw scoring equal out. So the 2 pounds didn't matter that much. So I could have just gone through it. But 405 was my PR going into that, and that was with a belt. So 407, again, was another way to kind of have a PR in this while attempting something heavier than what I would typically do. So it was a little bit for me. It was a little bit for competition at first, but also a little bit for me just to say I was like a PR. So looking at it, we were talking about trying to get to 5:15 at this point, and 5:15 on the clock to potentially get another shot at a weight if this goes well. So lined up. Again, watch where the bar kind of pulls away from my shins. You want it to be close the entire time, but this weight's just heavy, so it's not able to really be that way. And see how it's immediately away from my shins. Now it's like a lot of just back. This is where a belt really would have helped. The lockout was a little bit tough, but I knew once I got it off the ground, I could lift it. That's where I'm typically stuck. Yeah, and there I'm just like, okay, there's no way I'm going up anymore. That was definitely a 1-rep attempt with my form being not awesome. And that's definitely where a belt could help. And it's just kind of redoing the weight. So now I have until 10 minutes to rest and recover before the 5 minutes of pull-ups with a 35-pound weight. So that, yeah, I'm happy with where that was. My form doesn't look great when looking back at it, but I don't lift particularly this heavy all the time, so you never know, not sure what's going to happen with that. So one thing that I've been focusing on, because I knew it was a 1-rep, is not doing touch and go reps when I'm doing my work, my multiple set work. So doing sets of like 3x3. I used to pick up once and then bounce it off the ground, and then that'd be my set of 3. Now I'm resetting so I can pull it off the ground a little bit more. I found that when I get stuck, when I miss a weight is when I can't pull it off the ground. If I pull it off the ground almost at all, it goes up. But when I don't, when I fail is when it just doesn't leave the ground at all. And some people were missing at different points, depending on what your strengths are. Like if you got it up to your knees and couldn't finish it out, then you would probably want to do things like pin pulls, where you're able to just pull it from like a higher position, so you're able to get to that position a little bit more and finish that locking out area. But for me, it's just about getting off the ground. So it's something I focus on these past like month or two of training. All right, so we're jumping to this next workout. So I lift without my shoes, and then I was lining up the bar that I was going to use without my shoes. And then when I came back over to it with my shoes on, the bar was a little bit, I was closer to the bar than I wanted to. It should be about fingertips is where it should be, because you want to have good, clean pulls as they come up. So I decided to just not do shoes for this entire workout. So we're going to kind of go quickly through this, but we'll get the first minute or two of this training. So one thing that I did was go on singles, is I decided right from the start that's what I wanted to do. So one thing that I needed to be conscious of is, as I was lifting, making sure that my feet were coming off the ground. You'll see here, that was a little suspect on that one, but you'll see on this next one, feet up, pulling each time. So the dead hang was definitely conscious in what I was doing on each of the reps here. So I decided to do singles. I was hoping for 10 a minute, and I went out a little bit hot. I did about 12 this first minute. Things felt good. I mean, obviously it's right in the beginning of the workout, so it should feel sort of fresh with how it was all going. So the rules stated, again, no chalk. So no chalk on this at all. Again, just kind of wiping it against my shirt, my pants, and that you could have a little bit of you could have a kip. It couldn't be a kip at the beginning, like a butterfly or a kipping pull-up, but as you got up, you could definitely use a kip, use your legs to kind of get the momentum up there. You can see as it started, my hands are a good like width away. As I get more tired, for some reason, I get a little bit more narrow, I think is a way to kind of help get my biceps in, but that increases the range of motion, and I do get some no reps later on in this because I just can't get my chin high enough. If I had to do this again, I would definitely make a point to stay wide to continue to kind of use into my back and lats as opposed to focusing specifically on my biceps, and the biceps just kind of get in the way of that range of motion there. So singles was the plan from the jump. Here at the second minute, I am just continuing to kind of plug away. Ones the whole time. That's really the plan here. Pretty boring, pretty straightforward. At the 2-minute mark, I'm at 22. And you can see how my feet kind of kick out backwards from the dead hang now. I felt like that was a little bit more comfortable, so my heels are coming back to come off the ground as opposed to coming straight up. I don't know if that's better for form, but it just felt good and more secure with the with a dumbbell between my knees, pulling my heels back. It just felt like it was way more secure in that spot. And when I'd be in more of like a hollow position, it wasn't really working. So this is into the third minute, which was kind of a struggle. So I did 12 the first minute, 10 the second minute, and then I only got 6 in the third minute. And things are just slowing. And this is about halfway, and I'm just barely getting there. The weight's kind of slipping out. And you can see now that my hands are getting a little more narrow for whatever reason. I think I just felt a little more confident. And you can see I'm just missing. That was a complete no rep, not even close. So I've had at least 1 no rep at this point. I think I finished with 3 no reps total. And then leading into that final minute, so I got 6 the third minute. So slowed down considerably from the first, which I got 12. And again, right there, my hands are a little bit wider, but then I come a little bit more narrow again. And I just am really stretching to get that chin up over the bar. If I had to kind of do it again, I probably would have been a little bit more conservative right from the start and made sure, again, my hands were a little bit wider. I was taking a little bit more rest when I needed it, and not kind of rushing. I was really rushing in the beginning to kind of get each and every rep up there. And doing singles was really a good move, I think, right from the jump. I think it really helped my dead hang. So somewhere in that 39 to 40 rep range. When I tested it, I got 44 when I did doubles, but when I tested it, I did doubles to start, and then moved to singles pretty quick after like the first minute or so. And maybe the deadlift took out more than I thought it was going to, but 39 to 40 is fine. I was happy with that, especially because the way that they're scoring things, the pull-ups don't really count that much. They count the same as 1 second on each rep of a pull-up is the same as 1 second on a dead hang. I wasn't confident enough to just like bag the pull-ups because I still wanted to, because it's still like adding weight to your deadlift, right? So I essentially added 39 to 40 pounds of my deadlift, if you want to think of it that way, as opposed to if I just didn't do any pull-ups. And doing singles again, I wasn't feeling super pumped. I was feeling a little pumped, but not too bad. One thing I did make sure to do was grind down my calluses before this entire workout, because that's something that has been a limiter with the dead hang as if I was practicing. Like if that would build up too much, it would feel a little bit painful. So I was ground all the way down, so I was feeling pretty good in this part. So let's just fast forward to the dead hang, and then we're going to fast forward through the entire dead hang because it is boring. So same bar there, still no shoes. Trying to wipe myself, no chocolate out on this, no straps, no gloves, and just coming up and hanging. So we don't need to watch this at all. But one thing that I was definitely trying to do was not look at the clock, and I was really trying to engage through my like lats and shoulders, which is where I am particularly sore today. So there would be times where I'd be completely dead, other times where I'd be active. So I kind of cycled between active and passive, just trying to stay active as long as I could, which I think took a little bit of the brunt off of just my hands and forearms, as I was able to kind of get into my lats a little bit there. And I've been doing a lot of weighted pull-ups, a lot of pulling work in my strength. So I think that was really helpful in doing a lot of pulling deadlifts, croc rows, things like that, and doing a lot of non-mixed grip, non-hook grip stuff, non-strap work, just making sure hand over hand, regular deadlifts has been something that I was really doing. So I just kind of put myself somewhere else and just kind of plugged along on this and just kind of sat here. So let's just fast forward a little bit because this is just kind of what it's going to look like for a while. So here I'm at about 2 minutes. This is the first time I really looked at the clock, and I was pumped about it. I thought 2 minutes was going to be where I was going to stop. I thought 2 minutes is what I had in me. But when I saw I was at 2 minutes, then I just kind of started to listen to the music and kind of and I knew I was familiar with the song, so I was like, all right, let's just make it through this verse of music and then see where I'm at then. And coming up on, and then I started to kind of get these benchmarks close. So I was like, okay, I'm close to 3 minutes, which is definitely a PR. I think my PR before this is about 2:30 or 2:40. And so at this point, I'm already PR'd. And I'm like, okay, great. Let's get to 3 minutes and just see what I got here. And this is, I mean, you can see I'm starting to kind of like ride the round a little bit and seeing and just like hoping that I could eke things out a little bit more is just painful. And then my breathing starts to get much more labored. Big breaths in and out through my nose and just really trying my hardest not to fall off of this thing. That was an attempt to try to open up my hands to see if I could kind of get a little bit of reprieve from that. That was the first time I moved my hands at all. It didn't really help. At this point, I'm 3.5 minutes in and I'm looking at the clock. I'm like, maybe 4 minutes is on. is in play here. But for anyone to do this, you just know when it goes, it goes. And this is right now, I'm starting to kind of not breathe, starting to really be in pain, and then I just stop. So yeah, that was the dead hang there. I was really excited about how well that dead hang went. I mean, that was a huge PR, probably like a minute PR and something like this. And in an event where the dead hang is disproportionately important compared to the pull-ups, I was really kind of pumped about how that all kind of played out. And I think that doing singles on it was really the move for the pull-ups, and that is how I can really. The thing that I can point at that I might have done in this that really worked well was just making sure that I didn't pump myself up too much for the from the pull-ups. And it's like anything. It's like you got to pick and choose where you're going to take risks in an obstacle course race. So that was a calculated risk that I took here, is making sure it's like be a little conservative on the pull-ups instead of trying to be dynamic through like an obstacle or something like that, or taking a risk through an obstacle that might burn you out for something later, being on the more conservative approach. So that's exactly what I did on the pull-ups. And then when it came to the dead hang, it just kind of went well. And I was able, it was a nice dry day. It wasn't incredibly humid. It wasn't incredibly hot for where we live, but everything kind of went well. So yeah, that's the recap here for the OCR Stars workout number 2. We got one more to go. So good luck to everybody who's participating, and we'll talk to you soon.